Hello, everyone. Here's your weather hazard briefing for the last Saturday here in April. We continue with a pretty good stretch of warm weather, the warmest weather coming through midweek, with many places, especially across the Snake Plain and into the Magic Valley onto the south, hitting 80 degrees or warmer through midweek, especially the first part of this upcoming week. And that's really going to start increasing snowmelt and runoff and flooding conditions across central and eastern Idaho. We've been talking about eventually we might have to deal with a rain on snow event, and that's just going to make conditions even potentially worse with the rain on snow in the middle elevations and if some of our upper elevation locations. That looks like it's really getting pushed off to Thursday, it looks like at this point. Satellite shows high pressure building just to our west. We still have a bit of a northwest flow pattern over us, but high pressure along the coast, that's going to shift over us through the weekend. This area of low pressure is going to be part of the blocking pattern, and we'll talk about that here in a second. I'll show you how that's going to set up through at least the first part of this week. Our weather risk outlook, you'll notice we have minor to moderate impacts, and we're probably going to have some isolated major impacts coming with some of this snowmelt and runoff conditions setting up over the next few days. Where we have moderate, that's where we have most of our flood watches and our flood advisories and flood warnings in place now, and expected to see more as we go through the period. You'll notice maybe a few showers up along the spine of the Sawtooth, up around west of Haley and Sun Valley late tomorrow. Potential is there just about every day in a few spots, especially in the mountains for Monday. That's generally going to be in our higher elevations of the mountains, especially at least maybe initially Monday. It's going to be over east first, maybe a little better chance later in the evening across the central mountains. And that continues into Tuesday. Wednesday is the first chance of seeing a widespread potential of showers and thunderstorms, but that's just kind of the leading edge of all that precipitation moving into our area. So looking at how this forecast is shaping up, and we've been showing this in our briefing here the past few days, the cluster forecasts. We take all the forecasts and we kind of group them into the top four scenarios, the potential forecast pattern setting up. And you'll notice this is for Tuesday afternoon, 0Z Wednesday. That is Zulu time. That's 6 p.m. Tuesday for us. You'll notice pretty much that area of low pressure is setting up along the west coast of California. High pressure generally right over us or just to our east with this blocking pattern in place. We go into Wednesday afternoon. Things start to shift around a little bit. You'll see most of the cluster forecasts are keeping this low offshore. There's about 60% of these cluster forecasts that are trying to push this low a little further inland, and that's the impetus right now for a little better chance of a few showers and thunderstorms going into later Wednesday across our area. Now, you'll notice as we go into Thursday, they're all starting to push this wave north and east towards us. Pretty good chunk of these forecasts looking at about I should say not a big chunk. It's about 50-50 at this point for Thursday afternoon, keeping the main low off to our south and west or pushing it further towards the state of Idaho on Thursday afternoon. Then Friday afternoon, pretty much all the forecasts of some semblance of an area of low pressure shifting over us. So increasing chances of showers and thunderstorms and mostly rain as we go into the latter half of the week, even though this will bring about cooler weather our direction, at least temperature-wise for us. So for this afternoon, 60s and 70s abounds across the region. We'll finally see a few 80s once you get into the Magic Valley, down into the South Hills and the Albion Mountains, and obviously into the Treasure Valley. The only places we're really looking at temperatures being cool will be up around, like if you're going to Mount Boar today, and even those temperatures will be above 40 degrees. And for tonight into tomorrow afternoon, many areas still setting around freezing up and towards Island Park and down around Bear Lake and some of the more sheltered areas, but plenty of above freezing temperatures expected. Even Stanley is going to be above freezing in the morning. Copper Basin is going to be right around freezing. You can see those temperatures pushing warmer tomorrow. We're talking almost 80 in Chalice, low 70s in the Stanley Basin, but low to mid 80s once you push into the lower Snake Plain, into the Magic and Treasure Valleys. down towards the Utah border. And there's a non-zero chance, it's not a big chance, we're talking 10%, but that's not zero, that's non-zero, of maybe hitting 90 in a few spots tomorrow in those places off into the Magic and Treasure Valleys for Sunday afternoon and even into Monday afternoon as well. So you're starting to see temperatures, they're staying very similar, and a lot of these fluctuations of a couple of degrees is just the potential of where we might see a little more cloud cover each day across the area. Tuesday, maybe just a little bit more cloud cover overall, but you'll see the temperature still remaining very warm across the area. And Wednesday, not much of a difference as well, even though that's when we start to see a little bit better chance of showers and thunderstorms moving into our area. So we're going to take a look at some of our river forecasts here and kind of show you where we're at and where things are headed over the next few days. And first, we're going to take a look. This is the Littlewood above High Five Creek. That's above the reservoir. And you'll notice this is starting to push daily above into minor flood stage. And the trend is higher and higher and higher each day as we get the snowmelt going. And this trend will continue into next week. So expect this up and down trend. The graph is getting, you see those levels, those numbers getting higher and higher each day. Skipping down to the Bear River, this is at the Wyoming-Idaho border. Eventually, we're going to go into action stage, it looks like, and into minor stage by the time we get into the early part of next week. Moving downstream to the Pescadero gauge, we're going to be fairly close to action stage, but not quite there yet as we go into next week. And the gauge at the Idaho state border, we will be pushing into action stage over the weekend and the early part of the week, and by the middle of the week, where we look like we're going to be pushing up to minor flood stage with that particular gauge along the Bear River. So moving on, let's take a look at some of our other gauges. Some of our gauges, we have the potential of looking at the forecast and looking at various scenarios and giving kind of an ensemble look, multiple forecast look at some of these gauges. This is the big river at Wood River at Haley. You'll notice we're going to be in action stage here over the weekend. We're going to be pushing through towards minor flood stage through the middle part of the week. And right now, the probability of getting into minor flood stage is at 70 to 75%. And you'll notice the colors kind of indicate the spread of where the different forecasts are going, but you kind of see the middle of the road there's kind of floating right around the minor flood stage level, the lower end of minor flood stage. Portneuf River at Topaz. You'll notice we continue to, already in action stage, we're climbing towards minor flood stage, and that's basically almost 100% guarantee we'll be there by the early to middle part of the week, and it pretty much stays right there all the way through the 10-day forecast period with this. Now, switching over to the Portneuf River at the Pocatello gauge, and again, a lot of the flooding with this, it's not through the concrete channel. We're talking south of the channel and north of the concrete channel as well. And you'll notice we're already into minor flood stage. There's the 98% chance of going to moderate flood stage by the time we get into Tuesday. And you'll notice we're staying there in that moderate stage for the most part. And the forecast trace is a little bit higher than average, but there's still a 40 to 45% chance we're going to push to major flood stage with this, the Portneuf River in this area. A lot of this is dependent on how much rain we're going to get later in the week. And finally, just to kind of give you a heads up, looking at the Henry's Fork at Rexburg, we're not anywhere near action stage now, but we're headed that way potentially by the middle and end of next week. There's even a 65 to 70% chance we're going to actually get into the lower end of minor flood stage with that at that gauge there. But again, this is several days out. We'll be keeping an eye on that, and obviously all of our other rivers and streams and reservoir levels across the area. So last thing we're going to look at, this is down the road. This is definitely not looking at any specific amounts. This is looking at the rain for the end of next week. This is looking at the potential of seeing over 1/10 of an inch of rain over a 3-day period ending on Sunday morning. And you'll notice most areas are 70, 80%, 90% chance of seeing 1/10 of an inch of rain, maybe a little lower up around Challis, Ellis, and May, where we're talking those, the potentials there still about 50 to 60%, and that continues on up into portions of Lehigh County. We're going to push this to 1/4 of an inch or more of precipitation during the same period. and you'll notice those percentages start dropping off. But we're still looking at the potential in some areas, especially the higher elevations, 60, 70, 80%. Some of our higher ridge to mid and higher elevations, again, we're over 80% across the Snake Plain. Some is anywhere from 40 to 50, 60% in some areas. You get up into the Chalice area, that Ellis May area, we're talking only 20 to 30% chance at best of seeing over a quarter of an inch of rain in those areas. But like we said, the middle elevations right now are really important in terms of how much rain on snow we're going to get. And we'll push this up to a quarter of an inch. And you'll notice the overall percentages obviously are going down, but even a quarter to half an inch of rain or even more on some of with all this snow melt occurring is not a good deal. Very low percentages all across the board except for mid and upper elevations. Down around the Bear River Range, we're talking 60% or higher. The same with the Big Holes. Up around Sawtell Peak, up along the mountains there south of Yellowstone, and also into the Sawtooth and surrounding areas as well. So some rain is coming our way. That's later next week. This is going to change depending on how that low spins off and moves into Idaho, and when it does move into Idaho for the early part of next week. So like we said, we've got some warmer weather coming our way. Some places will be above 80 starting today and tomorrow, all the way through midweek. And obviously the warmer it gets, that in snowmelt and runoff, flooding potential is really going to start increasing. Even though we got a few showers coming, the best chance of seeing that rain on snow event we've been advertising is probably not going to start now until it looks like Wednesday night or Thursday. Have a great weekend, and do stay safe out there, everyone.